I don't know myself. What's this time?
Okay, it's 1 o'clock. It's Thursday. It's Straight No Chaser. So thanks for joining us. I'm John Lyons. I'm a fractional CMO and coach. We have Derek Walker, who is an advertising veteran and demon. We have Liesl McDonald, who is everything and always has been. I suppose probably the best way of describing Liesl is that she's such a smart marketer that she's no longer in marketing. And we've got Sebastian, who is a positioning expert and former copywriter. So we've got a couple of topics we're going to talk about today. But before that, let's kick off. Just do a quick round robin of one highlight of the week. So Derek, you're to my right. What's been your highlight of the week?
God, I don't have one. This has been a.
Oh, is it not this?
This would be the highlight of my week. Yes, I'll go with this. This will definitely be the highlight of my week. I think that's about it. I'm working on one project I can't mention, so that one doesn't count.
Okay.
If I can't tell you about it, I can't. This is my highlight. I really look forward to talking to Liesl and Sebastian, and I really wish we didn't have to tolerate you, John. But anyway,
I know, and just for the record, I saw the faces of everybody else. We all went, shit. He's put that as his highlight. I'm going to have to think of something now. Hey, so Sebastian, you're underneath Derek on my screen. What's the highlight of your week?
I'm not only underneath Derek on your screen, I'll tell you that. Does it need to be an advertising highlight or can it be a life highlight?
Oh, it could be anything.
Oh, shit. You know what? I went for a 15K run this week, and that was the longest I've ever run. And that was the highlight of my week, was being at the end of that. That's 9.3 miles for those that don't use proper measurements.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Liesl.
My highlight this week was, as some people might be aware, very few, I'm doing a postgraduate degree at the moment, and I got 3 grades back for submitted academic written work, and I was absolutely delighted. And at 57, feeling that I've still got some in me was a really pleasing feeling. So I just need to keep it up. That's the challenge now. But that felt good. I was so worried, and then I was delighted. So that was nice.
I had no doubt that you would achieve on that because you are brilliant. But well done anyway. Well worth celebrating. So my highlight of the week. So I
we actually don't care, John.
No, we don't.
Somebody might. Emma might. So Emma Clayton is someone that I've kind of known through the CMO Circle, which is kind of a online and in-person CMO and fractional CMO network and community. And she posted onto WhatsApp, kind of, she's doing a white paper and is anybody available to give some opinion, blah, blah, blah. And of course I said, yeah, because as you guys know, I love the sound of my own voice. And so I went to DM her on WhatsApp and noticed that we had a message chain going back to July when we'd promised that we were going to meet up in person. And that was the last thing. And so we had a video catch up. It was lovely. It was like I'd known her forever. And it was just a wonderful, warm thing. And community is so important. And it kind of reminded me how I first got to know you guys. Yeah, Sebastian came along later from LinkedIn kind of network, but Liesl, Derek, and myself got to know each other originally on Twitter in what was at that point a lovely little marketing Twitter community. And so that was the highlight of my week.
That's very wholesome.
It is, isn't it? It is. I mean, there's less things that I decided I wasn't going to mention because it might get us banned or arrested. So that's kind of probably the one. So we're kind of looking at a slightly different format this time around, guys. Guys and girls. Don't say guys. I keep telling my son, just because you keep watching all these misogynist gamer boys on YouTube, stop saying guys, and here I've just done it. So
I really like is
that I am in, I call everybody ladies, irrespective. It doesn't matter.
Okay, ladies.
You're all the ladies to me. So
Works for me. Okay. So we've got a format, I should say, this time out. Last time was a bit of a free for all, and it was fun, but we want to keep this one on topic. So we've got 2 topics that we're going to deep dive into. One that's come from the panel from Sebastian, and one that's come from Simon Swan, who is one of our viewer listeners and longtime buddy. So let's start with you, Sebastian. So you wanted to talk about Christmas ads, and in particular the Pepsi ad that's out at the moment and how it relates to kind of ongoing brand building. I guess it's probably worth saying for those that aren't in the UK, including you, Derek, Christmas is advertising Super Bowl over here. So it's when the brands come out with their big stuff, and typically it's disconnected from what they do all year round. But this one might be slightly different. So I'm going to play that for all of us to watch now, because I've worked out how to do that in StreamYard. Look at me. Okay.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere you go. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everything else can wait. It's Christmas after all. Take a pretty sight to see. Pepsi Max, thirsty for more.
Okay.
Oh, that ad is so grim, isn't it?
So tell me what you don't like about it, Sebastian.
I don't have enough time in the day. You know which ad I really do like? And again, sorry, Derek, you won't have seen this, but there's the new Asda ad with the gnomes. I really like, and there's some excellent puns about doing things with your gnomies. And they've got these little sort of mascot gnomes that are stealing Christmas treats and are sort of all up in the Christmas spirit. And I think, if I remember rightly, there's a bunch of different executions on this ad. And so depending on the product, so the products change out, but the messaging and the gnomes still sort of stay the same. And I love it because it's fun and it's cheerful and it makes me laugh. And I love a really good, bad pun, right? Especially gnomies. With the Pepsi ad, I think the thing that confuses me about Pepsi as a brand, and I want everyone else's take on this more than my own, is that like who is this for, and why does this exist, right? I drink Pepsi, I like Pepsi Max, I like the way that Pepsi Cherry tastes like sort of weird artificial, like sweetenery sort of goop. Like I'm quite into that, but in terms of the ad, I look at that and I think like who is this for? And I think the reason is because over the last kind of year or so, we've seen 3 very distinct things from Pepsi. We've seen the revival of the old logo, which was ads using a drone show where they show what the new logo was. We've then seen the Your Prob's Wrong ad, which I think is like a third of people prefer Pepsi Max to cola, which I know John doesn't like as an ad. And now we're sort of seeing this one. And I think the Prob's Wrong one, to me, very much spoke to like, okay, Pepsi is a youthful brand. It's for younger people. It's got that sort of vibe to it, right? The sort of Christmas ad, it doesn't fit. If you look at what the Amazon spot is with the guy sort of singing, it's quite touching. If you look at the John Lewis ad or the Asda ads, they sort of have like a feeling to them. And for me, it's like, it feels a little bit like Pepsi went, oh shit, we need a Christmas ad because everyone else has one. What do we do? And for me, I look at that and I think, what's the kind of, other than heavy product placement and just focusing on that logo, like, is this here because it wants me to create some kind of Merry Christmas, Matt, wants me to create some kind of emotional connection or build the brand with Pepsi, or does it just exist because they had budget to spend before the end of the quarter? And it feels like the latter to me. It doesn't feel like it's positioning Pepsi in a way that is exciting or interesting to either people that drink Pepsi already or to people that might be considering having a Pepsi Christmas. That's my hot take. I think it's boring.
Let's go to Derek.
I think it's all of what you've described, this being my first time seeing it. My problem when I saw it is not that I disliked it as much as I went, they're going to screw this up at the end. They set it up, and it's so bad once us marketing. It's a good idea that's executed badly. The idea that during Christmas season for you guys, things slow down, life stops being that hustle and grind, and you get together with friends and family. My problem with that is the first thing I really see in friends and family is the Pepsi can in the product shop. Not, do I need the can until the end? That I think is what the other spots get that you do like, that we do like it. I try to watch whatever John Lewis and whatever else you guys recommend on social media for Christmas. And most of them have that silent or soft reveal where it's not like, look, buy our product. It's like, okay, we're just going to give a gentle nudge. Pepsi and Coke can't do that. For the life of them, they cannot do that. Because if that had just been a signature at the end, it would have been a different spot. If it had more socializing, it spent so much time on the front end on all this empty space that it didn't show the different kinds of get-togethers that are happening now. And I don't want to call it a bad ad. I'm just looking at it going, oh, this was killed in committee.
Yeah.
It was a good idea that with proper execution would have been a strong idea. This is what happens when too many people have an opinion. So I'm looking at it going, the creative team is probably still out drinking. But I thought, because I actually was like, oh, they might actually pull this off. No. I'm sorry for that.
Liesl, what do you think of our wonderful new Pepsi Christmas ad?
I don't mind it. I observe this as a consumer and what I think about it and how I instinctively respond to it. And then I observe how the marketing community will analyze and dissect it. And those two worlds are not necessarily, I don't know if they've ever actually met each other at times. I think they might be very, very distant. I think it's interesting to look at what they've done. There are different executions of it. They're all slightly different. And the Pepsi sort of distinctive assets, if you'd like to call them that, are kind of dropped in before the reveal with the bottles. So the colors that are used in the bouncing ball, and then there's a Pepsi shaped thing on a treadmill. So there are kind of like little visual mnemonics throughout before you get the reveal. I would say the thing that I found a little odd as a creative decision is it was quite dark up front. And I can tell you a little story, if you'd like, about the Bob Hoskins campaign at BT back in the day, where the first Abbott Mead Vickers was the agency, and we had Ridley Scott was the director on the first execution, which was called Beryl's Birthday, and it was quite dark. It was about an old lady not getting anything for Christmas, and it was lit quite darkly. And I remember I was junior at that point, and I remember Adrian Hosford taking it to the board and showing them the first one. And one of the directors said, "The lighting's a bit dark, isn't it?" Now, this was just after Ridley Scott had come off shooting Blade Runner, so yeah. Lighting was a little bit dark. That was Ridley Scott for you. And I found this Pepsi ad was a little dark. I thought the music was clever. I liked the music, and I think the music is something that'll stick in people's minds. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. It's something that's snappy. It's in our head. They've updated that. And I think that people for me, all it's trying to do is remind you to pop some Pepsi in your basket when you're at the supermarket. And that's all it's trying to do. I don't think it has any bigger ambitions than that. Whether or not it will achieve the objective of putting additional crates or bottles of Pepsi in your basket at Christmas time when your friends and family are around, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll wait and see. Yeah. But I didn't mind it.
Okay. So I'm going to pull it back to the broader picture, which is that traditionally Coca-Cola have owned Christmas. And one of the signs of Christmas is the holidays is coming, the holidays are coming, the holidays are coming. This feels to me like Pepsi's attempt to be relevant at Christmas, whereas I don't recall them doing a Christmas campaign before. Maybe they have, but it kind of feels like they've decided to be relevant. And I mean, I do agree with Derek on the execution, because I think what there's a lovely idea behind this, I believe, which is this is basically them reframing. It's for a new generation. You've got the funky music. It's a lot younger. It's a lot cooler than Holidays Are Coming. It doesn't have the classic angles of the Holidays Are Coming. But I think when Sebastian and I spoke about this a couple of days ago, we were talking about what's led us into this point since the rebrand, which was a successful rebrand. I think, we've talked about some that might not be, but the last execution, which was You Probs Like Pepsi, was very much leaning back again into a classic kind of Pepsi tactic of kind of the taste test. And I think it was based on 70% of people who when asked, said they prefer Pepsi. But then there's the old saying of, what is it? People don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say. So while 70% of people might say they prefer the taste of Pepsi, they're being outsold by Coca-Cola. But I do think
Iron Brew.
And Iron Brew in Scotland, absolutely. But I think there is something in leaning back into the taste of the new generation without them actually saying this, because it does at least give them an angle. But I think the execution personally is poor. But as Liesl said, who knows if that's going to affect sales?
I think for me, the big question... Sorry, Liesl, you go.
No, Sebastian.
I was just going to say, I think for me, the big question is going to be, will they run it next year? And do they think that this has legs to do 1 Christmas, 2 Christmas, 3 Christmas, 4? That was all.
I'm not sure that's their intention, though. It's not huge, high production value. It doesn't feel like a platform to me. It feels like a something to support the retailers, something to put it, front of mind. And something that sticks in your head. It's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas will now be in there and for a little while now, because it's earwormy and it's kind of cool. They've updated the music. So, I don't think it has to have necessarily grand ambitions. And in a way, and just to be controversial, I think in a way it might be good not to have grand ambitions, because, John Lewis is out there defining our whole lives over Christmas, and other brands are there trying to show that they understand. I understand Christmas. No, I understand Christmas. No, I understand Christmas. And so it might not be a bad idea strategically not to try to do that in a field where there are bigger production budgets and bigger media budgets behind that kind of thing. Whether or not it's executionally right, I agree. There might be some quibbles I have there also, as I've mentioned. But I think in terms of a strategy, that might be a smart thing to do at this time of year. It's more when you're in the supermarket, I'll pop Pepsi in the basket. I'll get a 6-pack in there for the family when they come round. That's an okay ambition too.
Yeah. So this for you is just about being mentally available when you're about to do the big shop pre-Christmas. Do you think there's any play towards the retailers?
Yeah, I think it supports the retail. I think there's 2 markets. I think it supports the retailers, and it keeps it front of mind when you're out, trying to just increase those extra bits of extra jars or bottles of Pepsi in your shopping basket.
Interesting.
Derek, I like jars of Pepsi. I wish they did sell it in jars.
Sorry.
I know what you mean. I just think it would be very cool and very bougie.
No, it would be different. I think
they're targeting the younger audience. Maybe they should sell them in mason jars and
exactly. Yeah.
Or vape.
I think I think they miss an opportunity. Even if you want to do, for me to be reminded of it, what feeling at the end, I want to feel something. I want to feel something that isn't and I may be different because we don't get that many great Christmas spots. We get one or two and we're out in the US market. And we have a whole bunch of people trying to speak to retailers and fill stores and do all of that. And trust me, y'all don't want more of that. Because the US market looks horrible on TV for that. So I look to you guys and go, okay, I'm gonna get an ad from a brand that reminds me to just chill a bit and to embrace. And this, I picked up on the message early, and I was gonna get to it, and it was like, okay, where were the folks not just all sitting around the table so we can put a Pepsi in, but where was the cooking? You know, where's the shopping and the clowning and acting silly and stupid and all of that? And that may be in the other executions, but this one, I wanted life.
But all the other advertisers are showing laden tables and people greeting each other. Everybody else is doing what you've just said. So I'm going to give them credit for going another way.
I've been fine if there was a bunch of friends on the steps or in the playground. You know, I've got adult friends who meet at a playground that they've always been at. In my head, they were just, I get that it has to serve a purpose. I hope it works. I think they should never abandon that song, because the song, I'll be hearing the song for the next 20 days and I really don't want to hear it, but it's stuck. They can use the song next year.
The song's working hard for them.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, like
It
that.
really is. And I think the interesting thing there is kind of John Lewis invented Christmas as our kind of ad Super Bowl, right? And they've got a very specific and almost completely opposite approach to their music. Their stuff is more taking kind of high energy tracks or kind of, you know, high BPM tracks or higher and turning them into kind of whispery, soft things. Whereas this goes the other way. I mean, the music in this really reminds me of the Great Gatsby movie.
They worked with a couple of artists to do this bespoke music. It's two different artists who did bespoke music for this.
Right. Okay.
Not bespoke, they updated it for this. So they had a grime artist in there.
I suck at wrapping gifts. I am the worst gift wrapper on the planet. So I almost want a snippet of, you know, I want snippets of to be different. Nobody shows someone fighting with wrapping paper. Wrapping paper is evil.
I think we've had some of those in the past. I remember back in the day, wrapping was a thing that a few brands tapped into, how tough it was and helping each other. And I think, you know, trying to get people to buy different types of gifts within a product portfolio. It's like, don't worry about it, have fun with it. It's okay.
Yeah. I don't know where the fun was.
Someone said to me once sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, someone said to me once that there's two different types of beer. There's beer that you drink when you're thirsty because it's going to like quench you like a Heineken. And then there's beer that you drink because it tastes good, which I don't know, like Beavertown or something, right? And I think just listening to you guys talk, I've been wondering, where does Pepsi sit with this ad and with Christmas in amongst all of that sort of stuff? So it's like, for me, if I think about Coca-Cola, I think, well, if I'm thirsty, I'll have a Coca-Cola because it'll be delicious and I'll be quenched. With Pepsi, I think maybe to Derek's point, it's like, is what it's telling me is that this is the drink for friends and family, or like, where does it fit on the drink this because you're thirsty or drink this because it tastes good spectrum in this ad? And I think for me, it's like, it's potentially the communal sort of beverage, potentially. But
to Liesel's earlier point, where it's really sitting is just fucking put me in the basket and buy me this Christmas.
Just nudge me. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I go to the supermarket and I walk past the Pepsi display, dong, it's beginning to look a lot like it's.
I think what would have been very cool, actually,
I wish they'd done
is,
more exclusionary. I agree with all of that you've said about. I wish they'd done a bit more exclusionary. I do agree with all of that. But I think what they're trying to do is simple, and I think they've given a really nice musical touch to it. And I quite like the fact that I wasn't being. I didn't have schmaltzy or kind of like faux, peace, love, and understanding. Because there's a lot of that. So maybe that's my perspective, is like I'm kind of done with the whole emotional thing. There's a lot of that. So for somebody who's choosing not to do that, I think, interesting. You're not, you're going to stand out by not doing the whole, we all love each other, it's Christmas and it's something.
Okay. My best friend across the street, there's a Domino's spot here in America where they're talking about you can get a pizza they get a free pizza for a pizza emergency. And the guy is cooking and he opens his oven and all 3 dishes are on fire. And I think Domino's has just missed on how much fun that could have been. But the funny part is when the spot first broke, my best friend calls me, he goes, they finally nailed my niece. His niece almost burned the house down, cooking hard-boiled eggs. And she set the pot on fire because she put the boiled eggs in the water, turned it on high, and went away for an hour. That has become their holiday tradition story to tell.
I thought you were going to say their holiday tradition. We burn the house down every year.
So he's always she's like, he's like, oh yeah, the fighting has started because they've told the boiled egg story again. And to Liesl, to your point, it could have been something silly and stupid and so far off the pace as it's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas. I'm stuck with that song, but it could have been.
There's lots of executions of it, though. I think you have to see all the executions because it's about shutting down from work, not going to the gym. They do actually touch on quite a lot of points in our lives prior to the music coming in. So they're tapping into quite a simple thing, which is like out of office, closed, timeout. You're not going to the gym over this period. You're not going to the office. Nothing's getting done. Because it's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas. And I think if you see the different executions, that's where they're kind of talking about coming up to Christmas, and then during Christmas, you're out, you're done. There's an interesting comment from Laurie Glover in there who says, do you think that they're forced into the space because of the advertising behemoth that the non-AI version of the Coke truck ad has become? And I think that I agree. I think that's tapping into the point I was making, which is people are making these decisions to do things for reasons other than just trying to create the Christmas ad. And anybody trying to create the Christmas ad, well, good luck with that, because we all know there's a couple of brands that are able to do that and nobody else can. And so when I tap things into the point I was saying, which is supporting their trade people and not losing, sometimes not losing share is an objective that an organization has. It's not about branding, it's not about placing yourself in a wonderful new spot in people's minds. It can be just very, very commercial, and then finding a way into that through taking time out for Christmas. No shit's going to happen because it's for Christmas. Executionally, not in love with it, but I think it's probably a smart strategy, a smart thing to be doing.
I think Laurie's probably hit the nail on the head. And because I was saying to Sebastian the other day, kind of them going up against Coke, because quite clearly it is them going up against Coke, and you've got the classic holidays are coming, and you've got this much more taste of new generation kind of buzz following on from Probs. It kind of feels to me that since the rebrand, they've gone into a kind of Whopper v McDonald's or Burger King v McDonald's of being very, very heavily direct competitor focused. And it'd be interesting to see how it plays out, because a lot of the Burger King stuff was liked by professionals, but it's questionable whether or not it impacted the marketplace. It was also disliked by a lot of professionals, right? But Moldy Whopper, fuck that. I personally, and it was the Probs one, wasn't it, where you actually had a Coke can on the poster. Don't show me the opposition. Allude to them. So I do think it's a direct. Personally, I think it's a direct. Okay, look, we've not done this. We need to show. We need to show up on market. To Liesel's point, everyone knows Christmas is coming, the holidays are coming, whatever. Here's a little nudge. Put us in your basket as well.
I think I agree that I think Lori is right. I don't think the word is forced. I think it's somewhere in their heads that they have to. If you ask me, I would go, I bet you Pepsi's done hired someone from the United States. And I don't mean that as a slight or an insult. It's just because Pepsi and Coke in the United States have been warring at a different level forever.
Yeah.
We have in Asia too, and Coke's not number one in every market in Asia.
Yeah.
It's number one in quite a few markets, actually.
I mean, because if you want to go through I was at Pizza Hut, which is a PepsiCo company, during the Cola Wars.
Wait, what?
Listen,
Pepsi owns
the
Pizza
what?
Hut.
You fought the Cola Wars, Derek? Did you get
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We actually had a franchiser in Augusta, Georgia, who put Coca-Cola products in his Pizza Hut because he was like, I've got the number one pizza. I need the number one soft drink. And we yanked his franchise, but anyway. But the level that Coke and Pepsi in the United States went to war, I'm looking at this going, this isn't even a shot across the bow. Pepsi bought all the advertising in Atlanta, Georgia during the Olympics, all the outdoor billboard, all of it was, all the major billboard was bought by Pepsi in Coca-Cola's hometown for the Olympics. It's that level of pettiness or competitiveness or whatever you want to call it, that when you talk about them responding to each other, I'm used to. You look at the classic Coke Pepsi commercials, they show the Coca-Cola driver in the uniform with the truck, and they swing hard.
Yeah.
This I didn't. So coming from the United States, I was looking at this going, wait. When you guys started explaining it as a response, I went, that's not even like you walked over and went, I hit you.
Hey, that's a British punch.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I was like, I'm sitting here in my American mind, I'm going, oh, this was a slight on Coke?
To be fair, and I don't know whether or not it's to do with ad rules or if it's just a kind of gentleman's agreement. Liesl, you might know more. But we've never really had that direct outing the competition over here, not just in Pepsi Coke, but across the board. We see in American ads, it's very much kind of, fuck you, competitor, boom. Ours is, we just don't have that. We've never really had that, have we?
We have back in the day, but there was a period when there was a lot of complaints and there was a little bit more regulation, which the industry lobbied very effectively to be self-regulating, and it is still self-regulation. But it did used to be punchier back in the 80s and the 90s. There were more head-to-head and references, direct or otherwise, to competitors. And back in those days, there was also discussions about whether or not you should refer to your competitor's brand or not. But Pepsi and Coke have been at it since, I remember I did like to teach the world to sing, with all the people standing. Sorry?
Don Draper came up with that idea. I saw it on telly.
You saw it on telly, so it must be true. But those two have been fighting forever, and it's just because of the structure of the market in which they operate. There only are two named brands of that particular type of product. They have been gladiatorially sort of battling it out since time immemorial, really. And I guess that's another thing that's interesting, is the structure of the market and the structure of the competition is something you have to take into account when you're looking at the strategy that's driving a particular campaign. So, if you're in the insurance market, you might do things one way. If you're in the supermarket space, you'll do it a different way. If you're in this space, you'll do, there's how the market competes
Mm.
that drives your commercial strategy, which will drive what it is that you feel that you need to do. And, you know, it doesn't always have to be the same type of advertising with the same type of objectives to be good for business.
To be
Good
totally
point.
honest,
So I have a question. I'm
well,
going to go and buy
let me-
Pepsi after this. Sorry, Derek.
let me respond real quick. I thought this was an attempt to be John Lewis light, not a response to Coke, as much as, you know, we're going to do something bordered, not totally copying John Lewis's style, but close enough that it wasn't like we're fully committed to be this. I didn't.
I disagree, because John Lewis is people. You, from the minute a John Lewis ad, the camera first shot, it's people. And this wasn't. This actually went for an absence of people. So the empty office, the empty gym, the empty space. My feeling, and who knows who's right and who's wrong, this is just a discussion and it's just our opinions, but I felt that they were actually trying not to be in the John Lewis space, because they didn't go that whole people, emotions, relationships route. They went just time out, fun, time out, go have fun instead, which they could have shown more of, I agree. But they did show sort of intergenerational get-togethers and parties and gifts. There was a bit of gift opening in some of the executions and stuff. But it's going to take time out, be with your people, open a Pepsi. That's all you need.
Perfect. Sebastian, I'm going to give you the final word on this, as it was your subject, and then we're going to go into topic 2.
No, let's go straight. No, all I was going to do is open a can of worms about whether or not people think Pepsi is the underdog. So we're just going to blow straight past that and go on to topic 2.
Okay, well, screw that one. All right. So we've had a topic come in from Simon Swan, super smart marketer. In fact, he sent a couple of questions in. And the one that we're going to go with is, let's talk about how we can connect the role of media and marketing back to organizational goals. So I'm going to start with Liesl on this one, because I know that you have very strong feelings here and very valid ones.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll be brief.
No, go all in.
An organization has goals, and an organization has targets, and those flow from the board. It flows from the shareholders agreeing, the board agreeing. It flows through the executive team, and you may or may not have a marketer at that top table. I hope you do. And marketing does two things. Marketing delivers against those objectives, which is within its remit and its responsibility. And marketing, if it's a really serious person doing marketing, of which there are far too few sometimes, I think, then they can also lobby to influence those goals and those objectives and budgets. But it does not exist in a vacuum. It exists to be part of an organization which has different parties contributing to the success of that organization. And just briefly, I would say that I always used to think of it as a spider web. And at the end of each part of that spider web, you've got, maybe production, you've got sales, you've got marketing, you've got finance, you've got HR. And what you want is attention in order to keep the spider web nice and tight. And at some point, if one function is too strong or another's too weak, it gets bent out of shape. And then, of course, marketing might complain, but it's marketing's job to keep that tension. So to keep making sure that they're delivering, that they're feeding back upwards to say, this is what we see going on in the world. This is what we are hearing from customers, and to make sure that they're connected with the outside world and connected with what the organization is trying to do, and being part of that spider web, keeping it tight, keeping it focused. And yeah, there's stress and tension, but that's how good things happen.
Okay, good. Derek, let's bring the ad man in.
What was the question again? No, and I'm being serious, because I'm trying to figure out if I agree or disagree with what he's asking.
So he's asking, basically, how do you connect the role of media and marketing back to your organizational goals? So for me, I see that as what is marketing's place in the business, and how are we delivering to the organization's goals?
But isn't there also the assumption that there's a disconnect
There
in the
is,
question?
yes, and I personally think there is across the board, not everywhere, but as Lyndon said before, serious marketers are not as prominent as they should be or could be.
I don't know if there's a disconnect as much as we don't know what their goals and objectives are on the outside looking in. So all of us are commenting on work with the idea that we understand what the goals and objectives of the company were. So to us, a lot of them may look like they're not focused on a goal or objective that we want them to be focused on. And I'm not a fan of a lot of our marketers. I mean, the structure of some of these companies, I don't believe that's. I believe, like Lisso said, there are fewer of the good ones, but I think they still most of them are driven by a goal or an objective that we don't really fully understand. So I sort of bristle at that disconnect when we don't know what it is, stated is. And notice that they're careful never to state them publicly.
No. So let me reframe it slightly then. Organizational goals as related to the in-house marketing team or the CMO. So obviously, your experience is agency side. I've done a bit of agency, a bit of in-house. Liesl, obviously kind of primarily in-house, Sebastian, a bit of both. So, what I've seen, and I think this is where Simon's coming from too, and I think you both alluded to it as well, is that the marketing has kind of, it's not at the top table as much as it could be.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that's down to us as marketers. But is the internal marketers should be delivering to organizational goals, surely. Do we think they are? Do we think we even know what they are?
I think they know. I think they don't look like what we think they look like. I mean, sometimes you want to sell stuff, sometimes you just need attention. And smart marketers know this. That's why there are brands on the Super Bowl that people are going, why are they advertising on the Super Bowl? You don't understand their goal and their objective. Their objective is to get as many eyes on their product, maybe. And I hate to go backwards to go forward, but it's going to be a Wausau Insurance. No, I'm sorry. Master Lock had 13 years on the Super Bowl. I think it's 13. They were, for the while, the longest running Super Bowl advertiser until the ads got expensive. But that was also their only TV spot the entire year. Because American moms would see that lock being shot and go buy a ton of locks. Now, if you're looking at it from all us on the outside are going, well, why is Master Lock out advertising on the Super Bowl? What's their goal and objective? It doesn't make any sense for them to blow their entire budget on the Super Bowl. Internally, Master Lock is dancing to the bank going, this worked beautifully. It made them as much money as they could make. I don't know. I really think there's some marketers that are. I don't think they're as stupid as people paint them. I really don't. I think they're pretty good business people. I will also say I think they're cowards. That's how they got. I think they got booted out of the discussion because they're so busy trying to keep their jobs or whatever that they no longer became the teller of truth for them. See, some of the stuff we're talking about they need to do requires them to disagree with the finance guy. or
Well,
go up again. Go ahead.
I think that's an interesting point, Eric. And I think the point about lack of courage is one that I would absolutely and wholeheartedly agree with. But I would also say I can tell you who I know is a stupid marketer. And that is somebody who says they don't understand the financials. So the minute somebody says to me, I don't understand the financial, I don't do the financials, I don't do the numbers. And I'm like, well, not a, you can be a copywriter and you don't have to understand the spreadsheets. And that's great. You could be maybe a creative director and you don't have to understand how to read a profit and loss statement. That's not the role. That's not the job. You're saying you're a marketing strategist or a senior marketer. And the minute you say to me, I don't do numbers, I don't understand the financials, you are not a serious person, because that will, at the end of the day, you can talk brand, you can talk about you can talk about all of these things, which I wholeheartedly support, as you know. But unless you understand how you're contributing to everybody getting paid at the end of the damn month, you're useless. Unless you can contribute to the discussion and say, this is why you need to invest in marketing for rational reasons, and not just because I really quite fancy hiring a fancy agency and doing some brand stuff because I like it, then you're an idiot. And I think it's quite easy. I always say to people, how are you on the finances? And if they say, oh, yeah, I'm cool with it, okay. If they say they're not, I'm like, good. Okay.
And I disagree with, I love what you said, but I'm going to say, this is how the creative directors became such sucky creative directors. They should know the financials. They should understand them and read them. No, put them in. No, it's part of their job. Put them in the group with those folks. Because when they're
talking to the CEO, the people who are going to be talking to the CEO is going to be the chief marketing officer, and it's going to be the senior people in the agency. And I've had this said to me so many times by agencies that they wanted to meet the CEO. And I have introduced agencies to CEO. And there are very few times after I did when the CEO didn't say to me, I don't need to see them again. That's why I hired you. Because there were only a few agencies who, at the very top of those agencies, they had people who could sit down with the CEO and do two things: understand the commercial drivers of the business. And the second thing is shut up about themselves for long enough to hear what the CEO actually was saying.
I'm old, as you can see.
Me too.
I'm kind of shocked because the presentations we did to Fortune 500 CEOs, the executive creative director was in the room because he was sharp. He or she was sharp. I don't like, Timberland McLean was one of the worst experiences I ever had as an employee, but I can't fault that their people were not business brilliant, and it helped. To me, I think that's where we used to bring in the smart people, I don't want to use that word. Everybody in the room could hold their weight in the discussion about the business. Now, if you want to be excluded from a meeting, don't learn the finances, don't learn how the client journey, or don't learn how supply chain affects their decision. If it was important to the client, we were supposed to know it. Not know it as well as the client. Let's never do that again. We never know anything as well as the client. But what I understood is Dana Automotive, when I sat in front of the CEO, he's as concerned about his vendors as anything else, because they determine the quality of the products they put out. And whether they deliver on time, they deliver on price, and they deliver the quality they need. So when we're talking to them, we're asking those questions about those things, and we're listening, but we also have to ask those questions. What we haven't begun, to your point, is interviewing somebody is what we're really talking about sometimes. Do you know how to ask that question to get this person talking? I want to listen, but if they're not willing to talk, what's the question that will get me the conversation started? all over the place on this because my background is with good marketers that were in, some of them weren't CMOs because that title is fairly new for some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this with all honesty, I worked for Pizza Hut for 13 years. That at the end of my tenure with them is when they had a CMO. They didn't have one in 87 when I started with them. He was marketing director, all of a sudden then Pepsi. So I'm used to us seeing and being in the room with the CEO and being a value in that room. It's the same with franchisers. There are a lot of companies now, agencies now that are dealing with clients that have a strong franchise market here in the States. If you ever want to know what the mafia looks like now, just go to a McDonald's franchise meeting. I mean, that's a room of sharks. It's the same almost. So you're really talking about many CEOs, and agencies are plopping teams in there who don't understand they're a fast food business.
Mm.
So some of the mistakes they make, to your point, so it's that disconnect. I agree there's a disconnect, but it wasn't always, And now I'm stuck out of time. I really feel like I'm out of time. Like I woke up and advertising became, what is this? These folks don't know how to present. They don't know how to listen. They don't even know they don't know what questions to ask. They will not visit the client except for a meeting.
So let me just take that thought and throw that in Sebastian's direction. Question I've got for you on this, Sebastian, and obviously feel free to vibe on what you're thinking, but the suggestion from Derek, and I would align with this, and I'd imagine we probably would all to some extent, is that there's become a shift towards less knowledgeable marketers, particularly I think agency side, but also brand side. How much of that do you think is to do with, let's call it the democratization of marketing, i.e. we've gone digital and you've now got digital specialists that are coming into senior roles, and you've got relatively mature businesses looking for digital marketers rather than traditional marketers? Has that led to a disconnect from the business?
Oh Christ, this is where I rage against digital marketers and no one ever hires me again, isn't it? Yes, is the answer to that. I think digital marketing, the sort of focus on a single channel has fucked us all. I think it's fucked us as an industry, I think. And I think you have a lot of people who are making the hiring decisions who don't know that, right? And I don't think this is the fault of the CEOs, right? I think if you're a CEO and you haven't had a good marketer before and everything's digital, you think, well, I'll get a digital. I think it's the fault of the marketers, and I think it's our fault as an industry. I think telling people that just because they could buy ads on Facebook meant that marketing changed was a brilliant move by Facebook, but it has obviously screwed the rest of us. And I'm going to be doom and gloom guy here because I think we see this a lot. Like a really good example is Dollar Shave Club, right? When they blew up, it was because their marketing was great. Their direct marketing was great. Their offer was great. They knew what they were doing. Then they got bought by Unilever rather. And then they just tanked, right? And Unilever is essentially, again, like, Dan, I don't think you're watching this, but sorry if you are, a company full of marketers that don't really know what they're doing. And, you have the sort of leisure in a company like that, I think, where a lot of the things sort of sell themselves, right? And I think Dollar Shave Club is a good example of that. But yeah, the focus on digital and focusing on being able to use digital tools has meant that marketers don't have to be number literate in the way that Liesel's been describing. They don't have to be able to talk to CEOs in the way that Derek's been describing. And they can still sort of coast along and they can get through. And I don't think that makes them good at their jobs, right? I think this is all a big mistake. But I think strategically, that's not how, like, people don't think strategically anymore. They think about what are the tactics. If you ask people to build a strategy I think a lot of the time they give you a list of tactics, and you're like, this isn't quite the same thing. So yeah, I think the disconnect for me that was part of the original question was as much about understanding how marketing channels work together as it is about how it should actually work with a business, right? So like if you're excellent at SEO, that's great, but you need to know how your SEO, works with the out of home and all of the rest of it. And I think we've become incredibly siloed as a discipline. I mean, we now talk, people now hire growth hackers, not marketers, right? And that, like, what is that? What does that mean? You can't really hack growth. So yeah, I think it's a bad news for us, and I think we need to do a lot of fighting to get out of it. But I think we're sort of pushing shit uphill with a rake at the moment, because we have to educate the people that are making those decisions, and those people aren't always marketers. And I mean, Derek said before, marketers are cowards, right? And no one wants to turn up to a job interview and not talk about the power of digital. I mean, I've lost out on jobs because I've not gone in exclusively and talked about the power of digital, because it bamboozles people and they don't know what to do when you talk about sending leaflets through the mail, because they're like, why would we do that? Never mind that like a postcard is the only thing that has 100% open rate, right? It's that sort of, I think that's the position that we've kind of locked ourselves in.
I think also, just to add to that, I think
someone disagree with me.
Well, I'm going to a little bit just because you're a dick, but I think kind of we've allowed. I mean, digital has come in and it's been fantastic for many people. At the same time as it's allowed people without traditional training, including me, I'll hold my hands up, to find their way into marketing. Obviously, I went and learned and read and worked with some wonderful people and did some training with Liesel's favorite professor of marketing in the world. But I think at the same time, I've seen a lot of older marketers be really snitty and actually push the digital away. And we've seen a cycle where the digital generation, of which I'm probably the oldest of, but the digital generation has rediscovered some of the classic marketing theory and presented it as something else because it's not something they're aware of. And instead of kind of celebrating that and saying, hey, that's fantastic, you might also be interested in this, what I've seen particularly on Twitter over the years is the old boys coming in going, no, you fucking nana, it's not called that, it's called this, and we've known about it for decades. And that's kind of given us almost a two-speed marketing industry, I think.
I think also agencies are hiring younger as well. It is harder for older people to get jobs in agencies, and that skews the thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, it
anyway, Liesl, go.
Liesl, shaking your head.
Don't believe in generational shit. Don't buy it. Never have, never will. People are people. It's foolishness. Generational stuff really is. It's foolishness, I think. But I think what one of the problems is we're in an ontological cul-de-sac with marketing, because when you say marketing, and then people talk about advertising, and then you'll say marketing, and you might be a marketer who has to actually go and work out what the unit price is with the production team on a product. That's not the job of advertising agencies. There's nobody doing marketing in an advertising agency who's going down to the production line or the factory and working out how they shave stuff off the cost per unit, and then how you're going to then, which bits do you shave off? Which things are you going to take away? What functionality you're going to lose, or which bit of the service you're going to lose? So they're completely different jobs. And so for me, in any discussion like this, I just find it very confusing to know what somebody's talking about. Are you talking about marketing in the sense of being in control of pricing and product development? Are you talking about advertising? You're talking about communications? Or you're talking about media? You're talking about channels? You're talking about digital? And everything just seems to get smashed up, like I say, and we wander up these ontological sort of cul-de-sacs and then have these philosophical discussions when the construct that we're actually talking about, everybody's got something different in their minds. And so it becomes really difficult to have that discussion. So I'm all for clarity. I'm all for intergenerational learning. I think young people can learn from old people can learn from young people. It goes both ways. It is the only reason for hiring younger people is they're cheaper, and we all know that. And it's not just marketing that suffers from that, it's everything. Lawyers, law's got the same thing. We only hire younger lawyers. Why? They're cheaper. And then once
Can
you get
we,
pricing,
can we, add- wait a minute. Can we add a word, 2 words to that? Younger and less experienced. It's one thing to be young and be experienced. You can be that. But we're hiring people who are young and less experienced.
Yeah.
And that is the deadly combination. I
I
would
think
love to.
on that,
Mhm.
we're out of time.
Oh, okay.
I've really enjoyed this. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for those that have watched, listened, commented. Thank you, Jake. Didn't get the chance to bring in your last couple of comments. I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year, and we'll see you sometime next year.
Ooh, yay!
thank you. Bye now.
Thank you, Jake. I'll reach out to you. Y'all ignored poor